All right, everyone. Hello, and on behalf of the U.S. Commercial Service, we welcome all of you to a briefing about the upcoming Disaster Resilience U.S. Technology Global Forum, taking place November 15th to March 15th, 2022. My name is Brian Beams. I'm a Senior International Trade Specialist with the U.S. Commercial Service. I am your host for today's session. It'll be about 30 minutes long. Joining us is my colleague, Anthony Sargis, who resides in the Connecticut Commercial Service Office. I'd also like to thank the core team at this time, which is part of our ITA's industry teams. The team leaders and members of the core team are doing a fantastic job up to this point and will be with us until completion of the program in March. The core team, or the industry teams that are leading this effort, the environmental tech team, the safety and security team, the construction and design team, and as we call it, ICT, or the tech team as a whole. Before we get going on the presentation, a couple items to note. Today's presentation is being recorded. If you object, disconnect at this time. Everyone is on listen mode only until we will open up the microphones for the Q&A portion. You can at any time write in your question into the Q&A or chat feature. We can see both. And then when the Q&A portion does start, please raise your hand. We'll call on you if you have a question, when you have a question, and we'll proceed with Q&A at that point. Lastly, Anthony will be sending a summary of the email with the recording and some other materials, such as the PowerPoint, by tomorrow morning. And now I'll just, for those who do not know who the U.S. Commercial Service is, I'll lightly go over who we are. Starting with, we are what is called the U.S. Commercial Service, or the U.S. and Foreign Commercial Service. If you can imagine an org chart, we are the federal government. We are part of the U.S. Department of Commerce. Drill down into the International Trade Administration, go one more time, and then that's where you'll see the U.S. Commercial Service. We are the trade and investment arm of your federal government. It is an exporting agency. We help folks, or U.S. companies, build out their global strategies and help with market entry and access into foreign markets around the world. You can see we have over 1,300 trade specialists. We have over 100 domestic offices. As I mentioned, Tony is in the Connecticut office. I'm in the Northern New Jersey office, and our core team, our domestic core team, is throughout the United States. The other side, is, I sort of mentioned, is our folks overseas, which is the Foreign Service. They are in your U.S. embassies and consulates. We are not in every single embassy and consulate. However, if we're not there, we'll partner with the Department of State, and support your efforts into said market when it comes to commercial or commerce. Next slide, Tony. I think I pretty much mentioned as much as I probably should with commercial service. And if anybody has more questions on that, I'll be happy to take that offline, one-on-one, and also introduce you to your local trade specialist. Okay, sorry about
Brian,
that.
do you see the next slide here?
I do, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Just had to clear a couple things out of my way. Before we get going, for all the companies and participants on the line, please, if you, who we work with, right? We're mandated by Congress. So I mentioned U.S. companies. Well, we have one qualifier, really, a strong qualifier. It's with U.S. companies that fit 51% U.S. content rule. We can, again, talk offline if you want to stay on for the duration of this webinar, and if you don't know where you fit and how close you are to that 51 or greater % of your products or services. But that's something just to mention as we begin this, because this forum is for U.S. companies that meet or exceed that 51% U.S. content rule. Tony?
All right. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. So that kind of brings us to today and what we're going to just generally talk about. And I think we all know that, there's various types of disasters, whether it's wildfires, whether it's flooding, whether it's oil spills, hurricanes, tsunamis, etc. And even if we go into some of the, other areas with weapons of mass destructions or biological and chemical threats, there's various different types of disasters. And this just shows a trend. This was an article that was pulled in a graphic that obviously those trends are going to, continue over the years. So that brings us to today and why we kind of came up with this Disaster Resilience Global Forum. So we're looking at this form. We've been working with our global teams over the last probably 2 months or so to discuss this and build this idea out. So we're looking to identify technology companies that are in the space of various types of human, natural and human-made disasters. So whether it's cutting edge technologies that provide solutions to various types of disaster preparation, response, recovery, or reconstruction. And these are just to name a few of the disasters. I know there might be some of you out there that say, hey, well, you don't have my specific, profile pinned down in this actual graphic here or here. And this just gives you some of the examples of the cutting edge technologies that we're considering looking for through this form. So identifying U.S. companies that provide solutions in these different types of disciplines of technology, that's what we're really interested in. So identifying those U.S. companies and have them participate in this program that we're going to run, which is a 3-part program. And Brian, I don't know if you have anything else you want to mention on the different types of technologies that should consider participating in our global forum.
Technologies or companies thinking about it, we'll start with early stage companies to mature companies. In the sense of what's happening in the US, it's a pretty good background, unfortunately, for natural disasters. And what is happening here and the efforts here are also being requested around the world, around the globe. And it's not just Australia, it's just not Southeast Asia. Europe has reached out, so on and so forth. So our momentum when it comes to supporting this forum is coming back from our folks overseas and their clients and their partners and even their contacts with the foreign ministries in regards to these types of cutting edge technologies that the rest of the world needs. And the US is the leader in them. Tony?
Absolutely. Yeah, so if you have a US technology that meets our threshold that's related to one of these disaster resilience areas, those are the types of companies we're looking for to participate in this program. I'm going to move forward to the coffee chats, Brian.
Yeah, coffee chats are a nice component here where if you're a small business or you're just getting into this disaster resilience space and you're not necessarily knowing the breadth and depth of the globe and what is asked of, being asked of these companies or the solutions they provide, we're over the 4-month period going to set up, there's going to be a good amount of these market briefings by our colleagues at what we call post or at those commercial sections in those embassies and consulates. We'll also have members from our advocacy office. You can imagine foreign or the equivalent of FEMA ministries in other countries are going to speak. Development banks, right? Because countries need support or credit or they use debt to help build out their procurement when it comes to disaster resilience, just like infrastructure tenders. The UN is on board with some of their secretariats. And then, of course, a plethora of other local organizations in the U.S. and other USG agencies that are going to carry out their own market briefing, right? These briefings, just to let everyone know, they're going to be pretty short in theory, 30 minutes or less. They are going to be scattered or spread out throughout the 4 months. And they will be on the WebEx platform. And of course, just so everyone is aware, when you get into international business, a lot of times meetings are taking place not in the duty day or the business day of the US. It's taking place, those calls, those meetings, those events, if they're virtual or not, are taking place in that country's market. So those presentations will be taking place in that local time zone. We'll use an example for Australia. However, they will be recorded and submitted and sent out to everyone as these meetings, these market briefings will be conducted.
And just one fact, one point on that, Brian, is this form's taking place over a 4-month period, which we realize is a long time. And we're going to get to the other components and why that's a factor. But these briefings aren't going to be held every day. They're going to be held, again, throughout the 4-month period as we get, informational sessions that come in and educational sessions from our foreign post. We'll be able to provide that schedule to you at least a couple of weeks in advance as we start adding these programs throughout the actual form. It's the only point I wanted to add, and we'll move forward here, Brian.
Okay. And as we move forward, Bear is asking a question in the sense of, are are consulting firms, basically, that specialize in this, it's a big word when it comes to disaster resilience and emergency management services. Are they, or should they sign up for this forum? And the answer is yes. These foreign ministries, and a lot of it is going to be, you're speaking to foreign ministries, either they're the end users, and you might build local relationships with right, a local entity, a private entity. But at the end of the day, your services, your products are going to help those ministries in those foreign countries carry out their strategies to combat wildfires or droughts or whatever the case may be. Tony, you want to go through B2B, B2G?
Absolutely. So the second component of this program is a B2B, B2G program. So these will be meetings with our embassy colleagues overseas that are in the commercial section. So there's a list of about 30 countries below, and we're adding more countries every day. So those are our commercial specialists in these different markets that cover down on these different industry sectors that specialize in that. So the system that we're going to be using for both the B2G, and I'm getting ahead of myself, the B2B, will be a system called My Business Matches. So approved companies for this program, approved U.S. companies, will be able to go into this My Business Matches system. They'll be able to create a profile, which we're going to get into a little bit later and show you some examples of that. And they can request meeting directly with our commercial specialist overseas. Brian, you have anything you want to add on that?
No, this is, folks, in regards to market intelligence, as you step forward into this pool that you might not be used to, you want to know everything you can in the research phase as before you start executing actionable items, such as getting in front of potential partners, resellers, or the local ministry. Tony?
Perfect. We'll move forward to component 3. So component 3 of the program is a B2B program. So we're working with our partners overseas, our commercial sections to recruit buyers, pre-screened buyers, partners, government procurement officials, distributors, resellers, local partners, etc., around the globe to register for My Business Matches. So these buyers is a generic term to register for the platform, and it's a buyer-driven program. So as the U.S. companies build their profile in My Business Matches, the buyers will be able to go into the system through My Business Matches, and they'll be able to review your profile, see what categories you do business in, and they can request meetings directly with you. The only factor we want to mention on this is there might be some government procurement officials from a ministry in some country that's interested in connecting with you. And what we might end up doing for some of those high-level meetings is we might take them out of the My Business Matches system, and we'll coordinate a meeting with you directly, either through Microsoft Teams or WebEx offline. So there's a couple things with that we might do, but primarily we're going to use My Business Matches to make those B2B connections. And I want to reiterate, it is buyer driven. So U.S. companies will not be able to request meetings with foreign buyers. The foreign buyers will be able to request meetings directly with you based on their interest. We're going to move forward here. Brian, you got anything on that, on the B2B platform?
Just how you're actually getting into the My Business Match platform. Folks, in regards to what you're already doing with your virtual presence, maybe you've been in the industry for 10 or 20 or 30 years, or you might be new. Remember, we're introducing you. So therefore, we're not your local sales folks. So the better in regards to we're building out your My Business Match profile and so on and so forth, and promotional material that you'll eventually be asked to submit to us. That's how this is really going to work when it comes to B2B component of the forum.
This is just a screenshot, folks, of the My Business Matches system where you would register and log in and build your profile. Obviously, there's 3 elements to this. We have the overseas buyers that can register a profile, U.S. exporters, and then U.S. embassy industry experts, which are our colleagues overseas that will be building profiles as well. So those are the 3 areas that we'll cover. And again, we'll provide more training on this later on, but this is just a basic little snapshot of the dashboard. So this is kind of my profile here, Anthony Sargis, where I can see different matches that might come in through the My Matches feature. Obviously, you don't see a lot in the directory here now because this is just kind of our draft phase of this, but you'll be able to go in here. You'll be able to view the directory for U.S. companies. You'll be able to view the directory for the B2G meetings where you can request meetings with our commercial specialists. And as you receive meeting requests from buyers overseas, You're going to receive meeting email notifications that you receive those inquiries, as well as you will be able to see that information in the meeting request function. And you could either request or deny those meetings that you will receive. The one area we definitely want to mention on this, and we're going to go through some of the next steps for this. So reiterate the 3 components. The educational component, right? So that is doing these different briefings and webinars, these short briefings throughout. The B2B component, connecting with our colleagues overseas to discuss market opportunities specifically with them and learn more about the market. And then this B2B component, which basically building out your profile and having the accessibility for buyers to request meetings directly with you throughout the 4-month period. And there are going to be times where, you know, our folks in maybe South America are really active on the platform with recruiting, and there might be some times where other areas are more active. So it's kind of a cycle of events throughout the 4 months that you'll be hopefully receiving requests for meetings. But we ask you, if you're interested in potentially participating in this, that you're going to, you know, review the requests that come in and either accept or deny the meeting request. And we'll do our best to you know, if we don't see that those are being accepted or denied, we'll do our best to reach out to you with an email asking you, seeing what's going on. Just going to move forward on this, Brian. Just a couple things, you know, what should you expect from this program is we hope you'll, you know, develop dynamic global network. You'll explore and realize some new market opportunities and be educated on those market opportunities. And then hopefully we'll identify some potential sales leads for you through the, you know, the My Business Matches system and those B2B connections.
And there's a laundry, there's other ways when post, as I say, post, these are the commercial sections overseas, our colleagues, when they learn about you, just in that sense, as you're learning about a market, maybe you're speaking with our colleagues in UAE. They're learning about you, you're learning about UAE. If you have some savvy, you know, solutions that they've never even heard about, but yet their contacts of the Ministry of Interior have been quite, you know, reaching out to us. That's how some of these relationships get formed. So we're building in structure to the B2B and so on and so forth. So it's a little bit more, again, for the folks that have not really worked with the U.S. Commercial Service before, there's many ways that will synergize connections to the global markets as a whole. Just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Brian. And I know we got in the chat a couple questions about different types of technologies, and I think this will address maybe some of your questions and how that process will transpire. Obviously, we want qualified U.S. companies to participate that fit into this area of disaster resilience, which we realize is a large, you know, a fairly large category. So just going through these next steps bullet by bullet. The next step is registered participants will receive an email from us with a form to complete. So we will send you a company questionnaire. You'll complete that company questionnaire. You will forward that back to us completed. We will review your company, your objectives, and then we will make a determination on either approval or denial in participating in the program, if it makes sense. And obviously, if you have questions on it, regardless, you know, how that transpires, you know, you can always reach out to us and let us know. The next steps will be, you know, once you are approved for the program, if you get approved, you'll receive a link that has to submit payment. And Brian's going to talk about payment in a minute and what the cost is of this program. Once payment is completed, we will work with you to set up your B2G profile, and I should say My Business Matches, to get you set up for that so we can get everything ready to go by hopefully November 15th when we're planning to kick this event off. Also, just on the educational component, I mean, you can visit the website. We're going to start building in more of those. I know folks are going to say, well, what are the educational components planned? As we build those out, we will make you aware of those different sessions that we'll be offering on at least a monthly basis, if not like a bi-monthly basis. Brian, you have anything you want to add on next steps?
Just in regards to the monthly newsletter, if you will, what we'll call it, or what it's called, it will probably be a recap and then a look forward. So folks that are just busy in November but want to know what went on, maybe with the educational or informational sessions, they have an option to look back and then, of course, participate in those recordings and obviously see what's coming down the pike, so to speak. Regards to the cost of this form, one-time payment, small business, $250, medium size, $550, and for the large companies, it's $800. Folks, this is a standard of how we go about our programming. Again, the ones that have worked with us understand that our custom matchmaking services are a little bit more than this. So this is a pretty good deal. where you can really reach and stretch your legs, even if you're, especially if you're a small, medium-sized company. One thing to note, if you do not know of the State Trade and Expansion Program, also known as STEP, it is a SBA program, a reimbursement grant that is administered through the state trade agencies in your state. Every state's a little different how they disperse or run their program. New Jersey provides a certain amount of, if you're selected and approved for the STEP. And I'm just giving an example for New Jersey. They have a threshold of a certain amount of money, but they cover down on translations, website globalization fees, what costs there, U.S. commercial services, like the cost there. So where I'm going with this is, in many of the states, if not all, you probably can seek reimbursement for the cost of this form. Tony, am I missing anything else on this slide? I don't think so.
And if you have questions on where you stand as far as that goes, we can kind of work with you through that, and so you can understand what, if you're a small, medium, or a large company, if you can't figure that out. But obviously there's some specifics below, but we'll be happy to assist you with that process.
One thing to also comment is, once you submit your request and the team reviews and approves your company, you're then going to receive an email or information that, one, is going to be an introduction to your local trade specialist, if you don't know who that is, in one of the commercial service offices around the nation. So they're going to take you by the hand, and so don't necessarily worry about the minutia here. Worry about, focus and think about what the potential is and what markets that are your priority. Yes, Tony had many that he mentioned, and it's great, the recruiting, but you only can do so much in so much time. But and that's again why the cost of this hopefully represents effort for people companies that are hungry and eager to get their products and services out there for this sector. Lastly, Q&A. Yep.
I think, Brian, we have a couple of questions that came in, and I know Bear had a question about the My Business Matches system is technically up and running on the back end. Obviously, no one has access to it because you won't receive access until you're approved to participate in the event, but it is ready to go. So once companies, we'll get that email out with the questionnaire. Once they're approved, they'll receive an email with the payment link. Once the payment's made, then we will forward you the information to set up your profile on My Business Matches. Hope that answers your question. It looks like Judy has a question too. Consultants, manufacturers, service providers, it could be training companies that do things for search and rescue training. There's a lot of different coverage areas with this form for sure. I know that the slide, we limited it to some technologies just based on space, but I think that's why, if you do have a technology that generally fits into this area or a component, don't hesitate to kind of apply, let us review it and see if it's a good fit, and then make a determination based on that. Seeing any other questions there, Brian?
Steph, we talked about if the payment, or excuse me, if the form is there a fee? We went over that. Presentation will be available. Tony will get the recording out to everyone by tomorrow morning, and other resources such as the presentation that we're going over, if it's beneficial to you.
And then Eric came in with a question. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate that. Note on the program looks great. So the materials will be available. So the educational materials will be available for probably around a year at least. So we'll get them on YouTube or something, the webinars, that recorded webinars. And then there is, depending on how we do it, My Business Matches, the deadline for this is, it'll be available from November 15th right now until March 15th. So we'll see how it goes after that. If there could be potential, we can maybe extend a little bit based on, the success of the program. But right now, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at a 4-month program, again, November 15th through March 15th.
Cynthia asked, and I just lost it. Hey, there it is. Cynthia, you asked about, is it one primary point of contact for a company, or can it be many when it comes to My Business Matches? We're going to set you up for success. So if you have, if you're a company that focuses on, let's say, tornadoes and droughts, you're going to have two program managers for that or business development managers, we're going to have an account for them, set them up so they can be, yeah, on my business matches. So don't worry about that.
Brian, you see the other one. So, I mean, you have to work with, so Matthew's question on the STEP grant, there's no cost to apply for the STEP grant, but every state has a different procedures for the STEP grant and generally what qualifies. And there's usually is a minimum value qualifier. There could be, I should say. In Connecticut, it's $500. It has to be $500 or more, but not every state is like that as far as the reimbursements for STEP grant, but there's no fee to apply for your state STEP grant if your state has a STEP grant, which I think the majority of states do, right, Brian? And then I think another question that just came in. Go ahead, Brian. Sorry.
I was just going to say, you want to chat with that state trade office. If you don't know who your state trade office, Google the state you're in and type in state trade office, and that should be able to support you. And even type in STEP would be my guess for that search. If not, we can square you away for the folks that are having a hard time. We'll help introduce you to that state trade agency or office. I see one question just to take it. What languages besides English would disaster management books be translated to for use with the program? That part, it's up to the company. How successful do you want to be? I lived in other countries. When I went to said country or lived in said country, for example, I started in Germany. I tried German, and then finally they laugh at you, and then they say stop, and we can speak English. So where I'm going with this is that's probably if you're not working with the U.S. Commercial Service, or if you are, we'll cover down on that, right? Our overseas posts will set you up to say, hey, this is a Spanish-speaking country. There's only so many that are English-speaking. Do you have promotional material, i.e. presentations that are in Spanish? Normal operation question, and we'll cover down on that. What is the Vets Go Global? Real quick on that, we are, for the last 8 or 9 years, Tony and I and a couple others are military veterans of the U.S. Armed Forces. So we started for underserved business community, such as the veteran-owned businesses and service-disabled veteran-owned businesses. We've started an initiative in ITA. So that's just the 5th team, if you will, when it comes to all the industry teams that are taking advantage and really wanting to support this community. Tony, you see any others?
Brian, you want to handle that UN question that came in related to kind of how we're integrating that into the educational sections?
I am not seeing the UN question.
Just the UN involved. I guess just generally speak about the UN involvement or organizations like that.
Yeah, the UN is going to be our point of contact. I should start with is Susan Hedelman in our sister office, commercial service office in New York City. The UN is going to come in on a chat on the chat briefings, if you will, more or less in regards to inform you and educate U.S. companies that don't know how their procurement system works. And to include, they have relationships obviously around the world. So that's how we're bringing in and going to utilize the UN at this time. It's not going to be all of their secretariat. It's probably going to be a core group, but sort of that's going to be built out a little more. But that's hopefully that covers down on the question.
Brian, I know we're spilling over a little bit for folks that have to go. Obviously, can jump off, but just address a couple more questions here that came in. So, Matthew, you're going to receive an email from us by tomorrow morning with all of the information to register for this program. Basically, it'll have a document called a company questionnaire. You'll complete that company questionnaire. You'll get it back to Brian and myself, and we'll review that and then make decisions. So, I mean, obviously, you can always connect with your local trade specialist, but for this program, the core team will be running the operations for this program, and we will communicate with you all of the information related to this event. The only other thing I want to mention related to the educational portion of it is we're going to also look to do things that are kind of related to, anything related to export. So we're going to be looking to do is maybe some export compliance type training, maybe 1 or 2 sessions on that, as well as we're going to work with a group to do some training on foreign military sales in general. just to add some additional content to the program, as well as many of the opportunities in foreign markets for wildfires, flooding, etc.
For the folks I want to stay on, I want to address a couple more. Sandra, if I'm not sure if this is the Sandra I work with every once in a while. However, is this different than the Gold Key program? First off, it's different because this is a virtual program. Second, we're not at this time conducting Gold Keys or in-person travel where everyone on the call. We set up 4 or 5 meetings in a specific market, not many markets, one market. It could only be one city too. Example would be Mexico, where we have 3 commercial offices. It could be a Gold Key service, again, $900 for small companies, and then it starts going up. That is more of a custom and a focus approach for those companies that know where they want to go. They're export ready. They are educated. They are informed. They have a global footprint. They have an experienced core team. They know what they're doing. That's in this case, this is educational, informative, wide breadth and depth of or reach in regards to companies that want to find out where are the opportunities for disaster resilience products and solutions or services. So I wanted to hit that. And I don't know if you hit this one, Tony, but I'll stop after this. In regards to application, like we're going to send that to everyone who has registered. So that's going to be coming as well. And other than that, Tony, I'll end.
Darren, I know Darren's question. I mean, Darren, I got your question on the 2 separate companies. Let's take that offline and we'll address that with you. We'll figure that out, but we'll get you the information that you need initially, but we can have a separate conversation if you have 2 companies that you work with in this space. And then Daniel's question, yeah, we appreciate it, Daniel. We'll get a copy of this recording out as well if it's helpful to you to kind of listen to it or share with colleagues. We did record today's presentation, so we'll share that in our follow-up email, and hopefully that's helpful. And I think just in closing from my end is we want to highlight U.S. technology companies in this space, offer that platform through My Business Matches, where, you know, hopefully we can get some of those B2B connections for you from opportunities overseas, as well as educate you on different foreign market opportunities throughout the 4-month program. Brian, you have any closing remarks?
Just Bill asked a question. I don't know if you covered. I apologize, Tony, in the sense of for companies that have local or foreign offices. Yeah, they're going to be anybody that you want to identify that will help you obtain a sale, let's say, in this space. We'll all work together to make that happen. So again, if you have local entities that can support you or is the lead for that region or market, all that's going to be fleshed out and taken care of. Yes, they will be carrying or raising your flag and carrying your flag in that market and or region. Other than that, folks, we told you the next
Brian,
step.
A couple more just we'll cover. Folks can drop off if they'd like. I'll just spin through these quickly. I was looking at the Q&A box and now I'm seeing a couple in the chat. Bill, thank you for your service. We could connect with you on the Vets Go Global a little bit more. I'm seeing the timeline for turnaround as far as accepted or nullified. We'll let you know within a week of receiving your email, if not sooner than that. We're going to try to do it within a couple days to get those out. We expect to have a decent amount coming early, but as time goes on, we'll hopefully get quicker with the process. But yeah, give us a couple days and we'll get back to you.
And I think you covered all, unless you see more than me. But everyone,
we got
folks,
a couple of emails in there.
Yeah.
And then if somebody did join late, just, you know, we're always happy to schedule a follow-up individual call. Like, we understand this is a lot of information for 30 minutes. If you haven't worked with our organization before, you may have questions. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. Let's schedule a call separately. We can address questions that you have, comments, concerns, and obviously always looking ways to develop the program better if we can. I mean, we have a couple months ahead of us to run this program, so any ideas would be, we're welcome to take any ideas you have. That is it, folks. So we'll let you go for the rest of the day. Stay safe out there. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Thank you.